What's going on, guys, and welcome back to hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 262 for December 5th, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Two things before we get started with today's show. One being that for those curious, I am bringing back the 2018 WWE/NXT Year in Review Awards only on Next Air Wrestling in the next couple days. Usually I launch the polls in the very beginning of December. It's December 5th as I record this, of course. It's just been a crazy month already. It's been a crazy past couple of weeks. I've got everything ready, the what you could choose for, the options. I just got to set the polls up and publish them on the website. So those should be up hopefully by Friday at the latest. You can begin voting at that point. The link will be available on the homepage of nextairwrestling.net. I'll plug it through the remainder of the month, and then me and whoever it's going to be are going to break down the results of the 2018 WWE/NXT Year in Review Awards on the December 27th edition of Wrestle Rant Radio at the end of the month. So you'll have about 3 weeks to vote for, Match of the Year, Superstar of the Year, Feud of the Year, Shocking Moment of the Year. It's like the Slammies, but better. So be sure to vote when those go up in the next couple of days. And also, speaking of Next Day Wrestling and iTunes, check out this week's Wrestle Rant Radio. Always check out the show. We had John R. last week, John Ritlin, who obviously contributes questions here to the show almost every week. He's a great guy. We had an awesome episode last week. This week, we got on two special people. First, we got David McLean, the originator and creator of the original Glow show, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. He's on the show this week to talk about the new show, Women of Wrestling, airing on Access TV starting in January of 2019. But not only him, someone that's also going to be starring in Women of Wrestling in 2019 as well, the current Impact Knockouts champion, Tessa Blanchard. Yeah, we got Tessa Blanchard on this week's show talking for about 20 minutes about everything going on in her career right now between the Women of Wrestling show, Impact, maybe going to WWE NXT at some point down the road. A lot to talk about with Tessa on this week's Wrestle Rant Radio. It was an awesome interview. Check it out this Thursday, not only on nextairwrestling.net, but also on iTunes. Simply search up Wrestle Rant Radio on the Apple Podcast app. You can rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Excuse me. You not only get every new episode on Thursdays, you also get every archived episode dating back to October of 2013. So, anyway, guys, going back to hashtag here for a second. That's what you guys came here for, of course. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So, without further ado, let's get started here with Brandon A. from YouTube. What were the top 3 matches of the week? So usually my rules for this, my criteria, is that the match had to happen after I recorded hashtag AskGSM last week, but before this week's show. So obviously I'm not including 205 Live or NXT tonight, but I can include them from last week because I recorded the show before those shows aired on Wednesday night of last week. So this includes all the shows I've watched in the past 7 days, of course, excluding Total Divas. We got NXT, 205 Live. I guess NXT UK, I didn't really think about that. I did not include that in my matches here, but I guess I would include NXT UK as well. Both episodes. Those shows, Impact, Ring of Honor, Raw, and Smackdown. So, of those 3 shows, I forgot about NXT UK, so I'll kind of adjust my rankings here because I wrote down 3 matches already. AJ Styles versus The Miz from Tuesday's SmackDown. They had a great match in the main event of SmackDown on Tuesday. AJ emerged victorious. I was hoping for a full-fledged feud over the WWE Championship between those two at some point. Hopefully we will get that down the road. For right now, obviously, it's just AJ and Bryan. No complaints about that, but AJ and Miz would be cool too. But, if their match on Tuesday was any indication, I'm sure the matches will be nothing short of awesome. From 205 Live last week, I loved the main event between Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali, Buddy Murphy, and Tony Nese, the tag team main event. Great match. Those 4 have been working wonderfully together all year round, so it was cool to see them kind of culminate that mini feud in a great tag team main event. And then from Impact last Thursday, the opener between the Lucha Brothers, that being Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, taking on Rich Swann and the Mac. Very fun tag team opener. Impact last week. Not that great of a show, and a show headlined by Eli Drake versus Tommy Dreamer. I would not exactly call it a great show. It was a solid show, but not as entertaining as other episodes of Impact have been recently. So it was a very good opener, though. But I got to include this, now that I remember NXT UK. The main event of last week's Part 1 of the November 28th edition of NXT UK, that being the WWE United Kingdom Championship match between Pete Dunn and Jordan Devlin. A fantastic fucking match. I was never the biggest Jordan Devlin fan, dating back to the first NXT UK Championship, or the first UK Championship tournament in 2017. But the guy's really grown on me since the launch of the new show. He's really been allowed to go out there, strut his stuff, showcase his skills. The guy's a great performer, and he's still pretty young, too, a lot like Pete Dunne. So I thought they had a great match. I didn't think Jordan Devlin would win the championship, mind you, but the near falls were well done. The overall drama, the in-ring action was excellent. I love the match. And also a brief shout-out to Rhea Ripley and Toni Storm, the main event of the other episode from last week of NXT UK, for the inaugural NXT UK Women's Championship. That was a great match, too. Kind of hindered by the fact that Toni Storm, I believe, was legitimately hurt, but beyond that, it was a really, really good main event. Brandon's second question. I'll probably be asking a lot of ranking questions beginning in January, so let's get some out of the way right now. Can you please rank the best 2018 NXT takeovers from worst to best? It's not even like the best 2018 NXT takeovers. It's every takeover, because there's only 5 shows. We had Philadelphia in January. We had New Orleans over WrestleMania weekend. We had Chicago 2 over Money in the Bank weekend. We had Brooklyn 4 over SummerSlam weekend. And then we had War Games 2, a lot of sequels. War Games 2 over Survivor Series weekend. Surprisingly enough, I was in attendance for 3 of those 5, which I don't know if I'll ever be able to say again, which I thought was pretty fucking cool. I got to go to Philly, because I was at the Rumble. I went to Chicago for Money in the Bank weekend. So I went to both Chicago, that takeover, and then Money in the Bank that Sunday, and then the very next takeover, Brooklyn 4. I just went to takeover. Fuck SummerSlam. I went to Smackdown with Alexis on Tuesday, and then Brooklyn 4 on Saturday, the week prior, with Noah. So we had a great time there. It was a great show. So I was not at War Games, and I was not in New Orleans, and you'll see why in a second. I was disappointed by that. So from worst to best, I hate to say worst, because none of these takeovers are the worst. This might have been the best year for takeovers yet, because every single one of them was excellent. We really have yet to have a bad takeover, I get that, but every one of these takeovers was better than any WWE show I've seen in 2018. That's a fucking fact. Even Chicago, which I would say was the weakest takeover, I still thought was a fantastic show. And I was there for it, so that's saying something. But yeah, TakeOver Chicago 2, very good show. Definitely at the bottom of the list, because I remember the main event between Gargano and Ciampa. Loved Ricochet. Ricochet and who was it? Velveteen Dream for the NXT. No, it was no championship on the line. It was just a regular match. They stole the show, I thought. The main event was great. Aleister Black and Lars Sullivan, it was okay. It was a good match, but it was far from great. Shayna Baszler and Nikki Cross, very good match. Far from great, though. I didn't really care about it too much. And then the opener, Undisputed Era versus Oney Larkin and Danny Burch. Very good match, too, but this was overall the weakest takeover of the year. Then I would put Philly. Philly was another show that people were sleeping on coming into the show. I thought it was an excellent takeover overall, if only for the top 2 matches between Aleister Black and Adam Cole, and then Gargano and Almas in the main event. The rest of the card, it was Baszler and Moon, who I thought had a pretty good match. Their New Orleans match was better, but that was still a pretty good match. We had Undisputed Era versus Authors of Pain in the opener for the NXT Tag Team titles. Very good match, but nothing too newsworthy at all. And then Velveteen Dream and Cassius Ohno, which was pretty basic too. So again, I wouldn't argue with you if you put Philly behind Chicago, but I put Philly above Chicago just because those top 2 matches were 2 of the best matches all year. So that's why I put that in number 4. And again, that's saying something about these other takeovers coming up. Brooklyn 4, I would put at number 3. Again, stack card. Top 3 matches were fantastic. Baszler Insane for the NXT Women's Championship. Great fucking match. Adam Cole and Ricochet, fantastic match. Even EC3 and Velveteen Dream, which was the weakest match on the whole show, was at least pretty good. The opener with Mustache Mountain and Undisputed Era, fantastic match. And then, of course, the main event between Gargano and Ciampa, the street fight, or the last man standing match. The street fight was in Chicago. Great main event, too. Next top 2 takeovers. Number 2 is War Games 2. I would not call it the greatest takeover of all time. I don't agree with that. And if I did, I would have put it at number 1. I saw a lot of people calling it the greatest takeover ever. Not when New Orleans happened, which I'll talk about in a moment, but War Games 2 I thought was a very, very good show. An excellent show even. Way better than Survivor Series, which was still pretty good. And even better than last year's installment, I would argue, too. The War Games main event I thought was slightly better than last year. Not the best match of the year or anything, but I thought it was a very good match. Gargano and Black, excellent match. You had Sane and Baszler I thought was definitely the weakest of all their matches, but still good. You had Gargano Black, you had Dream and Ciampa, which was fantastic. So maybe I probably would put Brooklyn ahead of War Games, now that I think about it. But it was still a great show. And then Matt Riddle's debut I thought was great too, beating Cassius Ohno in a minute. So I guess in retrospect I would put Brooklyn ahead of War Games, but purely my opinion. And then the undisputed number 1 in my opinion has got to be New Orleans. Has got to be New Orleans. Show start to finish was fucking phenomenal. Nothing less than a 4-star match on that entire show. Fucking fight me if you disagree. We had the 6-man ladder match opener for the inaugural NXT North American Championship. One of the best matches all year. A 5-star classic. The main event was also a 5-star classic between Gargano and Ciampa, the unsanctioned street fight. You had Baszler and Moon for the NXT Women's Championship. Very good match. Baszler emerged victorious and became the new NXT Women's Champion. The Undisputed Era versus Authors of Pain versus Strong and Dunn, which was a great tag team title match. The weakest match in the whole show, which is saying something. It was a great tag team title match. That was where Roddy went heel and joined Undisputed Era. That was also for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Cup, too. And then what else was on that show? Oh, Black beating Almas for the NXT Championship, which was also an excellent match. So that has got to be still my favorite takeover of all time, and I wasn't even there for it. I've been to 6 or 7 takeovers by now. This was my favorite takeover, and I wasn't even there for it. So again, that's saying something. And Brandon's third question, can you rank the best match at each takeover from worst to best this year? Again, it would be weakest to strongest, because none of them are the worst, but yeah, worst among these 5. But the thing that you'll notice with this list, every match that I put on these, like, the best match at each takeover, again, it's all subjective. Every match I included featured Johnny Gargano. So if this guy is not the MVP of WWE in 2018, I don't know who the fuck is. But anyway, at number 5, I put Gargano Ciampa 3 from Brooklyn 4. It was a great match. The finish was a little disappointing, and it was weaker than their other 2 matches, but it was still a great match. Number 4, I would put Aleister Black and Gargano from War Games 2. I thought that was the best match in the whole show. I guess people could say Dream and Ciampa. I just thought Black and Gargano told a better story going in, so that gave them the slight edge over Ciampa and Dream. This was still a great match here. Black and Gargano told an amazing story. The in-ring action was excellent, start to finish. Fucking phenomenal stuff. That's number 4. Again, saying something here. Number 2, Gargano and Ciampa 2 from Chicago 2, the street fight. Great match. Not as good as the original. I mean, close. It was close. I would put it slightly down, if not just as good as the original from New Orleans. But that match was phenomenal. The finish was great with Ciampa barely eking out the victory. And the story they told there was spectacular. Number 2, Gargano Ciampa 1 from New Orleans. I thought that was the best of the 3. All 3 matches were like 5-star classics. And that's not like exaggerating either. The first one I thought was the best. A lot of callbacks to their feud over the past year. The storytelling was great. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but storytelling, drama, suspense, in-ring action, everything was top-notch. And then number 1, which I still argue is the match of the year for WWE/NXT in 2018, Gargano and Almas from TakeOver Philadelphia. I thought that was just an amazing match. And they told a great story going in, but Gargano was the just perennial babyface on that show. And they just created magic. One of the best matches I've seen in WWE in many, many years. Probably the greatest NXT match I've ever seen, period. But just in WWE in general, I have yet to see a better match than that in WWE this year. So again, phenomenal match. And like I said, all 5 of those matches that I just included from each takeover featured Johnny Gargano. So if that guy is not the MVP for NXT, or really the WWE on the whole in 2018, then we have a fucking problem, because I don't know who else would be. I love Aleister Black. I love the Undisputed Era. I love AJ Styles. I love Daniel Bryan. I love Seth Rollins. But none of those guys had a consistently better year in the ring, in my opinion, than Johnny Gargano. Muhammad D from Facebook, his question was, with Raw ratings continue to plummet badly in their lowest rating in their history, what do you think is the purpose of WWE putting up terrible Monday Night Raws lately? Is it like the fall tradition every year where WWE main shows are always low in quality, or is there trouble within their creative team? I have no fucking clue. I have no clue. I don't know if it's a combination of them getting their recent deals with Fox and with NBC, with USA Network, and then just thinking, okay, we can kind of just limp along until we get our fucking new deals in 2019. Until those new deals kick off, we could just put forth terrible programming, which I don't think is the case, because SmackDown is still very, very good. If anything, SmackDown should be the awful show, because it really doesn't matter what they do in the remainder of their run in USA, because they're going to Fox no matter what for like 5 times the amount of money. So SmackDown, if anything, should suck. But SmackDown, I thought this week was a great show. Raw, on the other hand, is absolutely abysmal. Why the fuck would USA Network or NBC, whoever, want to pay that much money to hold on to Raw when it's doing worse ratings than ever before, and the show's fucking terrible? I mean, I want them to stay on USA, but I'm just saying, like, from a business standpoint, I'm sure it brings in more ratings and more money than anything else USA Network produces, including fucking Todd Crisley and all that other dumb shit. But still, I mean, the show is an embarrassment more often than not. It's an absolute fucking embarrassment, especially lately. And obviously it's going to get better at some point, but it should still be good right now. We can't always say, oh, it's going to be better come WrestleMania season, which is not the fucking case. Because come WrestleMania season, Raw's still going to suck, and you're going to be asking yourself, I wonder why. Well, it's because they need to put forth the effort right now and not wait until fucking WrestleMania or Royal Rumble season. They need to start putting forth good shows right now and not waiting any longer. But at any rate, I really could not tell you. It's a combination, I think, of the deal thing, of the television contracts thing. That's definitely a factor. Maybe not a huge factor, but it's something of a factor. They're making money despite themselves. I mean, they really don't give a shit what the actual television show looks like, because they know they're still going to have their core audience of like 2 million fans no matter what. They're going to tune in regardless of how bad the show is. People like you and me. Maybe not you, if you're listening to this as a casual fan, which I know many people do, and they don't watch Raw, they just listen to podcasts or hear me talk about it or read my reviews. That's a very real thing. But at any rate, it's a combination of that, all the injuries that Raw is dealing with at the moment. Again, that's not an excuse, because they have a lot of talent still in that Raw roster, and even a feud as hot as Rollins and Ambrose feels like it's cooled down significantly, because they're fucking doing the fans smell, or like, oh, look, I peed on your robe. Like, what the fuck is this shit? We know they're very much capable of writing good shows. That's what pisses me off more than anything, because we know they're capable of having great shows, because I've seen it before from this company. And I'm not just talking about the Attitude Era. There's been a lot of bright spots in this company's history, in recent modern memory, that I can remember, where I thought that Raw was a very good show. Right before WrestleMania 34, I thought Raw was great. The Superstar shakeup kind of fucked them over, and SmackDown got the top-notch roster. But you can still make the most of whatever roster you have and put forth good programming. Like, there's a lot of great people on that Raw roster they fucking ruined with bad booking. Dean Ambrose is well on his way there. Bobby Lashley's already there. Braun Strowman's a loser. Baron Corbin is just fucking intolerable to watch every single week. It blows my mind that they continue to find ways to make Raw as bad as it is every fucking week. It's ridiculous. There's not one reason. I doubt they're putting forth bad programming intentionally, but if people are asking whether they are doing that because that's how bad the show is, like, do they have that, can you top this mentality? Oh, we're going to make it even worse than last week. Just watch. And then I don't know, because it feels almost impossible to fuck up that badly with a roster this good. Muhammad D's second question here. Do you think All Out Elite Wrestling launching in 2019 will be a wake-up call for WWE to step up with their show's quality and make better shows for both Raw and SmackDown? Also, any predictions on the major independent talents and current WWE stars that you think will potentially go to AOEW soon? I mean, obviously, the entire Elite, I would imagine. Most of the Bullet Club is going to be in the promotion, if they do indeed launch it. That includes like Cody and Kenny and the Young Bucks. I don't see any of those guys going to WWE. They've been teasing it far too much on their show, being the Elite, for it to actually happen. They're just going to start their own promotion. WWE stars, I don't think AJ Styles is going anywhere. I think Gallows and Anderson are top 2 candidates to leave WWE and go to All Elite out or All whatever the fuck it is. the Elite promotion, All Out Elite Wrestling. I could very well see that being the case, just because they've been doing all of a nothing in WWE for like the last year or two. So why the fuck wouldn't they just leave? Why the hell not? So that's awful. Just because they really should have been booked better upon coming to WWE. They really weren't, but whatever. So them, anyone else in WWE, I can't say for sure. Maybe Dolph Ziggler. I just get the feeling that he just wants to collect a paycheck and doesn't want to go anywhere. Whatever floats your boat, dude. Whatever makes you the most money, but he has been doing a whole lot of fucking nothing. Yeah, he's had a better year in 2018 than any other year in the past 5 years or so, I would say. Overall, since he came to Raw. But still, the guy, since breaking away from McIntyre, just feels like another body on the roster, just holding up a spot. So why not just leave and make, a decent amount of money elsewhere, doing something else? I don't know. He just feels like a waste of space on the roster nowadays. But nonetheless, for the all-out Elite Wrestling, for the Elite Wrestling promotion, when it comes to, like, is it going to be competition for WWE? They should always be striving to produce better shows. I remember, like, a report either earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, that After Wrestle Kingdom was so fucking good. And it's always good. It's always good. Wrestle Kingdom is almost always the show of the year for New Japan. Not just in New Japan, but just in wrestling in general. Wrestle Kingdom is their premier pay-per-view of the year, as it fucking should be. WrestleMania should be the same way. WrestleMania this year, I would not even put in my top 5 best pay-per-views of 2018. It was a good show, but it was far from great, and that's merely my opinion. Anyway, though, what I was going on about before, about when it came to all-out Elite Wrestling and the competition factor that it may play when it launches, possibly. I mean, I think it will. But yeah, what I was going to say was that, I remember this report, reading this report that said, because Wrestle Kingdom was so great, that Vince McMahon wants to make WrestleMania must-see this year. It's like, dude, wouldn't you want to make must-see WrestleManias every fucking year? I laughed because it's comical that Vince would even watch New Japan, even know what a New Japan Pro Wrestling is. And B, he should always want to put forth his best effort and have the best show possible. There is no competition right now to WWE. There's just not. And if there is, they fucking buy it up. Like the UK scene, like Evolve Wrestling, like Progress. They're working with all these promotions. And I don't see why from their standpoint, it's smart, because they get to own all their competition and get to, kind of tone down anyone that starts to get hot. Ring of Honor and Impact, as good as they are not hot right now. They are not nearly at the WWE level. They are not anywhere near competition for WWE. So that being said, All Out Elite Wrestling could be the competition that WWE desperately needs. I'm not going to say Raw is going to be must-see every fucking week because of All Out Elite Wrestling, but it could play a factor. I would hope. I don't think it's going to make them produce better shows. I mean, it could, but I do think it's going to want to make them sign and lock up certain talent for longer, like AJ Styles. I think that's an absolute factor, because they do not want anyone leaving WWE. If anything, they're trying to get people to come to WWE, not so they can really use them, but so other promotions can't use them. Like a fucking, I don't want to say Mike Bennett, because he really wasn't that big of a star anyway, but like Keith Lee. I mean, Keith Lee and Matt Riddle have been utilized well. Like Bobby Lashley. He was a pretty big star in Impact, EC3 too. They have done a whole lot of nothing in 2018. I love EC3. He's had a good year in NXT, but he's been doing a whole lot of nothing this year. Bobby Lashley, it's been even worse on Raw. Way worse, because the way they've booked him makes it almost impossible for anyone to ever take the guy seriously, because he fucking sucks. The heel booking where he like bends down and shows his ass. What the fuck is this? What the hell am I watching? It's an embarrassment to watch Raw every week with anyone, I mean by myself, but with anyone that's not a wrestling fan and wouldn't get it. It's a fucking embarrassment. So again, I feel like they just do that to lock up certain talent, make sure they go nowhere else, make sure they're not, being utilized the way they should be in other promotions. And as long as WWE has them, we don't care if they're a star or not. If it doesn't work out, what the fuck ever, as long as they're not in Impact or in Ring of Honor or New Japan or All Out Elite Wrestling. I could see Gallows and Anderson. I can see them. I could see WWE wanting to lock them up for a few more years. And hell, they very well might re-sign with them. I would not be surprised. But I would also not be surprised if they left, knew their worth, and went back to either Japan or started wrestling for this all-out Elite Wrestling promotion. Because they're doing fucking nothing right now. Why would WWE want to sign them for multi-year deals? They did the same thing with Jack Swagger a few years ago. They tried to sign the guy for like a multi-year deal, and he was like offended that they were paying him less. It's like, dude, they don't give a fuck how much they pay you. They just want to keep you so that you don't go elsewhere. He's the current Lucha Underground champion. Oh my god, who cares? I love Lucha, but like Jack Swagger, Lucha Underground champion, give me a fucking break. But like the reason they do that, they don't give a shit about you. Jack Swagger had not been on TV in months at the time that he got cut from the roster in early of 2017. He had not been on TV in fucking months. They just didn't want him to go anywhere else. I doubt he would be a big star anywhere else. I mean, he's been a big star in Lucha, but that's hardly competition. I mean, I'm glad he's being utilized well, but Jack Swagger, really? The guy debuted 10 years ago, but whatever. When it comes to stuff like that, like, they don't give a fuck about keeping Jack Swagger. They have no plans for Jack Swagger. They just want to sign him up. They just want to sign him and lock him up for several more years just so he won't go anywhere else. They want to fucking... what's the right word for it? They want to just stock up on talent. They want to lock up on talent. Stock and lock. That should be the WWE like new dance move. The stock and lock. Stock up on talent and lock them up because they won't go anywhere else. They just want to, what's the word for it? I know I've heard it before. Keep the talent, not make sure they don't go anywhere else. There's a word for it, but I can't think of it. Hopefully someone can give it to me and tweet it to me or something because it's going to fucking bother me. But that's what they do. They poach. They poach another talent, they recruit other talent just to make sure that not only that they can use them, potentially, if they have any interest in doing that at all, especially if it's not NXT, just so they won't go anywhere else. That's so fucking petty. I can see why they do it, but it's not good for the talent. I mean, yeah, they might be making more money, but if they're never on TV, then who the fuck cares? Anyway, so Muhammad D's third question here, as we move along. I spent a lot of time on those questions because they were great questions. His question was, it's quite unfortunate to end my hashtag AskGSM contribution this week on a somber note, but just last Monday, my dad passed away from cancer, which has me thinking, what memories or moments connecting to your dad made you love pro wrestling in the first place? Well, first and foremost, dude, that's absolutely awful. Sorry to hear that. My thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. That's just fucking atrocious. Muhammad actually sent me a picture of him and Xavier Woods. I'm not sure if that was before or after. Hopefully that was able to lift your spirits a bit. He seems like a really cool guy, Xavier, so great picture, by the way. I commented on your picture on the post, but I just wanted to tell you that again. But cancer sucks. We've talked about it here on the show before when it comes to Roman Reigns. Cancer fucking sucks. Cancer can go fuck itself. But to answer your question, what memories or moments connecting to my dad made me love wrestling in the first place? I mean, wrestling was really something I kind of came into on my own. It wasn't like something that he watched. It really didn't run in the family when I started watching it. If anything, it was my grandfather who actually got me into wrestling. Not because he was a wrestling fan, but because I would watch USA Network all the time with him. And obviously Raw airs on USA, and he would ask me about how wrestling was going and stuff like that. So if anything, he was really the person that got me into becoming a wrestling fan over 10 and a half years ago, almost 11 years ago at this point, which is crazy to think about. But, anyway, so when it comes to my dad, he actually brought me to meet my first ever wrestler, that being Tommy Dreamer, over 10 years ago. There's a great, not so great picture. It's from so long ago, I look fucking ridiculous. But yeah, I met Tommy Dreamer at a hockey game of all places, because my dad knew someone that worked at the building. It's called the Sound Tigers, or whatever the fuck it is. It's like a hockey team here in Connecticut, like one of those local hockey teams. And Tommy Dreamer was doing a autograph signing, so we got to talk to him beforehand. Really, really cool guy. I've gone to a bunch of Northeast wrestling shows with him, at, high school auditoriums. He's usually my go-to guest to take to those type of shows, so it's always a great time. But those are probably my most fond memories and moments when it comes to dad-related memories, when it comes to wrestling and stuff like that. But, yeah, the Tommy Dreamer thing will always stick out, just because he was the first wrestler I ever met, and if it wasn't because of him, I probably wouldn't have had the chance to meet him. But that was over 10 years ago, October of 2008. The pictures are probably somewhere definitely on my Facebook page, and my personal Facebook, and on Twitter. I mean, they're from so long ago. They must be on Next Era somewhere. I don't know where they would be on the website, but they got to be somewhere. But there's some pretty great pictures of me talking to Tommy with my younger brother Jackson. He's standing right there. But yeah, Tommy Dreamer was the first wrestler I ever met because of him. I mean, I know you're not asking who was the first wrestler I ever met, but it was because of my dad that I got to meet Tommy Dreamer. And then it was a few short months later that I found out that some former wrestler was on my dad's like local fucking softball baseball team or something like that. It was really crazy. A guy named Mikey Batts. No pun intended with the whole softball reference, but Mikey Bats, I mean, he's not well known at all, but he did compete in TNA for a little while in like the early years of the company. I was just watching some old TNA pay-per-views a few months ago, and I still do, but like it was an old 05 pay-per-view, and Mikey Bats was like a staple of the X Division. And I think he's been on WWE TV too as part of like Heat or Velocity or something. I heard he got hired as a referee a few years ago, so I got to meet him through my dad too, and that was really random. I never met him again after that, but I didn't even know who he was at the time, but it was pretty cool to kind of meet the guy and see someone that was at one point a pretty, not a big star, but like he competed for TNA, and that's fucking cool. Anyway, so next question comes from @RideCoach27. This question was, let's say the Elite go to WWE. Besides Kenny Omega, who would be the most successful? Cody, Adam Page, the Young Bucks, Marty Scurll? That's a great question. I think of those 4 or 5 people, I include the Young Bucks as one. Of those 4 people, I'm going to be honest with you, I think Adam Page would be the most successful. I don't think any of them are going to WWE. I really don't. I don't think Kenny is going. I don't think Cody's going. They're all going wherever they're going next together. And I think it's going to be all-out Elite Wrestling. Why else would they fucking sign up for the trademarks and all that other shit? I think it's going to be a package deal. They're all going to start up their own promotion together. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it's a good idea. But I don't think any of those guys are going to WWE, at least not right now. Maybe at some point down the road you can argue, well, their stock's never going to be higher. They'll never be hotter than they are right now. Why not go when they're, when the iron is still hot? Well, it's because they fucking see the product. They know they don't want to go there and get abused. Why the hell would they ever want to go to Raw after watching Raw the last couple of weeks? Like, they're not stupid. They pay attention to everything that goes on, especially Cody. Cody was fucking there for a long time. Cody was abused creatively when he was in WWE for the last 10 years before he left the company and realized that he was better than the Stardust shit. And he probably would still be doing that shit if he didn't leave. So I don't blame them for not wanting to go to WWE, at least not right now, because they know that they would not be utilized properly. I mean, there's a decent chance they could be, at least in Omega's case. The rest of them, I have no faith. Kenny Omega probably would be the exception, like AJ Styles, because, I mean, AJ's been here for almost 3 years now, and he's been WWE champion twice, US champion a bunch of times. He was in one of the headlining matches of WrestleMania this year. He held the WWE championship twice and once for over a year. So that's a pretty amazing 3 years for AJ Styles, for a guy that was never really expected to not only succeed in WWE, but let alone arrive in WWE. So I think Omega might be the exception, a lot like AJ, but the other guys I have no faith for at all. Tag team wrestling has never been more irrelevant in this company between Raw and SmackDown. So the Young Bucks, I have no doubt they'd be fucking a big deal for 2 weeks and then toned down immediately. A lot like Gallows and Anderson. They talk to those guys. They're friends with those guys. They probably talked them out of coming to WWE because Gallows and Anderson know about them coming over, that if they came over, they'd be focused on, for a little while, and they'd get some buzz, but then they'd be booked like shit. Then they would never be on TV. So why the fuck are the Young Bucks, for all the money they make on merchandise and for all the money they make outside of WWE with New Japan and Ring of Honor and on their own Elite stuff, why the hell would they want to go to WWE and potentially make more, sure, but be abused and just fucking like, the Young Bucks, the Young Money Bucks, like they'd probably be called something dumb. And they'd be, I mean, I don't think that's a guarantee anymore. Nowadays, they let people use their names. But you know what I'm saying, though. You know what I mean. The Young Bucks, if they came in, they'd go for the tag team titles, maybe win them once or twice, but they'd be doing a whole lot of nothing. What, facing the fucking Revival every single week? They're a bunch of losers. And I would not want to see the Young Bucks doing the exact same thing if they came over to Raw at any point in the foreseeable future. The Revival are a prime example of a tag team who has a lot of talent and a lot of potential, but they're not going to be going anywhere. Gallows and Anderson are the exact same thing. Another 2 guys that could be doing a lot more than what they're doing right now, which is a whole lot of nothing. So again, the Young Bucks, I have no faith, maybe very little faith, I'll say that much, but not much faith at all, that they'd be utilized at the level they deserve to be at. And tag teams rarely go far in WWE. New Day and the Usos might be the only exceptions. Beyond those guys, tag teams usually are together for a fucking year, and then they break up, or they just fade off into irrelevancy, a la the Ascension and the Revival and all these other tag teams between the 2 brands. Marty Scurll's a great talent. I really do feel like his size would work against him, though. All the jokes about him joining 205 Live are very real. I honestly do believe there's a decent chance they would put him on 205 Live. And 205 Live's a great show, don't get me wrong. He's way better than 205 Live. He is above 205 Live. He is. He should not be on that show. His character is strong enough as the villain where he would be able to succeed on his own on either Raw or SmackDown, ideally. But I think Vince might see his lack of size as an issue. I mean, Adam Cole's small, but he's not as... I think Marty Scurll's shorter than Adam Cole is. I might be wrong about that, but I don't know. For some reason, Scurll's height stands up more than Adam Cole's does. Maybe because Adam Cole's personality is bigger. I don't really know. But for Scurll, I really do not have much faith that they would utilize him at the level he deserves to be utilized at. Cody... I'm not going to say, oh, well, he was there before, that he'd be abused again, blah, blah, blah. Well, look at Drew McIntyre. The guy was a fucking loser the last time we saw him in WWE 4 or 5 years ago. He was a member of the 3MB, but he came back after reinventing himself on the Indies. He came back, became NXT champion, and has had a great run on Raw in 2018. For as bad as Raw has been this year, Drew McIntyre has somehow been able to prevent from, not fade off into irrelevancy, remain relevant, continue to hone his craft, and become a big star in that Raw brand. There's a lot of people that have been won over by Drew McIntyre because the guy's been that fucking good this year, both on NXT last year and Raw this year. So Cody might be another example of that where, he really wasn't doing anything of note the last time he was here, but the company might see in him when he comes back like, holy shit, he actually is a world caliber, a world champion caliber competitor, and start pushing him towards the main event scene, which is where I believe he belongs. After becoming the Ring of Honor World Champion, he competed for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship a few times. He's had great matches, and at All In, he was the NWA World's Champion at one point. He's held all these championships. He was the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. He's held all these titles. But I don't know if that's going to change much for Vince. I think McIntyre, because of his size, they were always high on McIntyre. They always saw dollar signs in McIntyre. He just kind of faded off and lost his way. Cody, I don't know if they ever saw him as a main event guy. I know they pushed him consistently as a mid-carder, but unlike McIntyre, he never really had the opportunity to be more than what he was. And was never granted that opportunity because I'm not sure Vince was ever that high on the guy, especially being Dusty Rhodes' son. I think that plays a factor too because he is Dusty Rhodes' son. Dusty Rhodes was obviously a member of the PC, of the NXT brand, and he's helped out a lot of people, but at the same time, he still was a founding father of the NWA and WCW, and Vince doesn't forget about that type of stuff. I'm not saying that's the sole reason why they didn't push Cody Rhodes, but I do believe that might have played a factor. Cody could be successful. I think just Adam Page, though, he's got the look. The guy's still young. He can go in the ring. He's very exciting to watch. He's got a good character. I don't think he could do the hangman thing in WWE, mind you, but just he has everything that company would want. He has a great look. He can go in the ring. He can talk. He checks off every box. And Cody can too, but Adam Page is way better in the ring than Cody, let's face it. Cody's great, but Adam Page is infinitely better. So of the four, I think Adam Page would be a surefire superstar in WWE. The other guys, Young Bucks, Scurll, even Cody, I'm not so sure about. At Reborn again, of course, here's John R. Like I said, he was on Wrestle Rant Radio last week, so check out our awesome edition. Our very rant-filled edition of Wrestle Rant Radio. It was a great time. His first question was, given the recent booking they've received, what are the chances the Revival do in fact leave WWE sooner rather than later? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I really don't know. I think the chances are decent because they know they're better than what they're being given. Let's face it. But there's so many other guys like that in WWE. I feel like there's so many guys in that company that just kind of coast off the fact that they're making money regardless. Tyler Breeze, Ty Dillinger, who was the other one I was talking about? Dolph Ziggler. They've all gone on record. They have all gone on record on fucking Twitter, which is ridiculous. But they all have gone on record and said, oh, why don't you just leave? When people ask them, well, why don't you just leave? You're being buried every week. Why the fuck are you still there? And they all put up dollar signs, which, you know what, is great. If they're making money, that's wonderful. But if they really had enough faith that they could be big stars, then they would leave. I don't think any of those guys actually realize their own potential. Maybe a Ty Dillinger would never become a world champion. But are the guys just perfectly content making money? I mean, I know his girlfriend works for the company, Peyton Roy, so I understand that. But beyond that, though, there was no reason for him to not leave. The guy is doing nothing in WWE. If he really wanted to take a chance on himself, a la Cody, and a la all these other people that leave and go on to become big success stories outside of WWE, which isn't everybody. Like, look at Ryback. He left. He's done a whole lot of fucking nothing since he left the company. He's been a fucking afterthought in the independent scene. But Cody took a chance on himself, became a big star. I mean, I'm sure he was making great money with WWE. He's probably making just as much now. He said that before in past interviews. He's probably making just as much money now, if not more, than he was while he was with WWE. So that being said, with a guy like the Revival, with two guys like the Revival, I think they're a lot like Cody, where they realize their own worth. And at some point, if they know for a fucking, for sure, they know for a fact that they're not going to be pushed at the level they believe they should be pushed at, then they'll leave. I don't know where they would go, maybe Japan. I see those guys as a WWE tag team. I do. I don't know if they would do as well elsewhere, because like a Jack Swagger, a lot of these guys are very well protected by the WWE system. Then again, I thought Cody was a WWE guy. I never saw him leaving that company and going on to do what he's done in other promotions, so I take that back. The Revival are good enough where I feel like they could be big stars as tag teams, as a tag team in New Japan or Ring of Honor or whatever, if they continue to be treated like shit every fucking week on Raw. So I think there is a decent chance. They've even joked on Twitter about, not being utilized properly and being fucking buried week after week and like, don't give up on us now and all this other stuff. When talking to fans like, oh, don't give up on us, don't give up on us. Well, we have no choice because you're being booked like shit. And it's not their fault, but if they really thought they could become big stars, they would leave and go elsewhere and hopefully make more money in Ring of Honor or New Japan or, become successful enough to the point where they would be brought back because the company realized what they were missing out on. So maybe that happens with the Revival. I don't see it happening, but there's a decent chance, I would say, like I said. John's second question, after a Q&A segment on back-to-back Raws, do you have any faith that WWE will bother booking Sasha Banks and Bayley correctly anytime in the near future? I don't. I really don't. 2018 has been an abysmal year for Banks and Bayley. Both of them have had an awful 2018. But even beyond that, did they really do anything in 2017 that was that much better? I know they both won the championship in 2017. Bayley held the title for like 2 months. She successfully defended the championship at WrestleMania. But after the whole This Is Your Life bullshit, she went all downhill. Banks, same thing. She held the championship for, a week after she beat Alexa Bliss for it at SummerSlam. And then she dropped it back to Bliss, and she hasn't held the championship since. So really, for well over a year now, these two women have been joined at the hip, which I'm so sick of. I mean, I was waiting for a feud between the two. It's clearly not happening anytime soon. So just put one on SmackDown and keep the other one on Raw. They have to be separated. It's been going on for 2 years now, and there's been no progress made on the Banks and Bayley front. So just fucking split them up. I'm sick of the tag team shit. It's just It's just nauseating to watch them on Raw every single week. The whole happy-go-lucky shit. And I love Banks and Bayley, but as a tag team, they do nothing for me. Especially after all that time was spent and essentially wasted and telling that story that they could be feuding at some point. All of that amounted to nothing. Amounted to absolutely nothing. But anyway, with Banks and Bayley, there's still hope for them. I think there are another 2 stars that could leave and do well for themselves outside of WWE. But Banks especially, I think, is good enough where she can leave and do well in another promotion. But do they want to leave? Are they happy with, are they happy making the money they are? Like, I don't know what's going on, but it's clear that the company has no plans to push them anytime soon, at least as a singles act. And I know with Ronda on your show and Alexa Bliss, who they favor heavily, as they should. I mean, she's really good, but Banks is better in the ring. Bayley's better in the ring. That doesn't mean that they should be booked like shit, which they have been. They deserve better than that. So I have no faith in their booking for the foreseeable future. Hopefully it turns around at some point, because if it doesn't, they might as well just leave. And John's third question here. Who are your 3 current favorite and least favorite women in the WWE and NXT divisions, and why? So top 3, I thought it would be easier to find 3 than it was. I mean, obviously Bayley. Despite her brutal booking, I'm still a big Bayley fan, so Bayley would have to be number 1. Becky Lynch, especially in 2018, I'm a big Becky Lynch fan right now, so she would have to be number 2. The third one was hard to find, to be honest. I really don't have many favorite women's wrestlers, even including NXT. I love Deonna Purrazzo. I don't know if I would call her my favorite, though. I'm a big fan of hers. I don't know if I would call her my favorite. But, yeah, Bayley, Becky, and probably Asuka. I'm a big Asuka fan, even though they also botched her push this year. She's done well for herself, and she's still over by the grace of God. For some reason, she's still fucking over with the audience, which is great, but I don't understand why after all they've done to damage her in 2018. But yeah, my top 3 favorite women would have to be Bayley, Becky, and Asuka. And 2 honorable mentions, I like Ember Moon. She's not my favorite. I wouldn't buy an Ember Moon t-shirt, but I like Ember Moon. And then also, I don't know if you would include this because this is more NXT UK, but Rhea Ripley. I'm a big Rhea Ripley fan. She's gorgeous. She's great in the ring. She's got a lot of potential. I was very happy that she was crowned the inaugural NXT UK Women's Champion. And Toni Storm's great too. I'm a big Toni Storm fan, but there's just something about Rhea Ripley that stands out. She's really fucking good. So yeah, Bayley, Becky, Asuka, and then 4 and 5 kinda, Rhea Ripley and Ember Moon. At Hardy DX fan, my apologies to Ross. He sent in these questions like weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I apologize to Ross for waiting so long. If that happens, by the way, so if you send in a question after the deadline and I don't get to it and I see it and I let you know, like, oh, I'll include them in next week's edition, whatever, and I don't, let me know, because sometimes I do see your questions. I'll like the comment on Facebook or I'll like your tweet on Twitter, and then I'll see it, but I'll just forget about it and forget to put it in the document because I have like a million things in my mind at once. So I'll see your questions or question, and I'll just forget about it and forget to put it in the document for the next week, which is exactly what happened with Ross. So again, my apologies to Ross. If that happens to you guys, please let me know. I have all the questions saved. If I liked it, if it's on Facebook, I can always go back and find it. Just let me know, and we'll answer it for a future episode. Unless it's timely and I missed it, and then I apologize. Like, these questions were kind of timely, so I apologize to Ross again for that, because these questions were more so relevant a few weeks ago, but they still stand. His first question was, would you consider AJ Styles as one of the fastest growing WWE superstars after having 1+ years holding the WWE Championship within his first 3 years? Absolutely. I think people are thinking that even well before he won the WWE title and held it for a year. People were arguing, was he had the best rookie year of anyone in WWE history between January 2016 and January 2017, which he's definitely in the top 3. The other 2 I would include would be Brock Lesnar and Ric Flair. I know Ric Flair wasn't exactly a rookie, but neither is AJ Styles. Brock was really probably the best rookie year because he was an absolute unknown. AJ and Ric had success elsewhere. Kurt Angle, kind of in the same league as Brock, where he was kind of an unknown coming into WWE, but first year there, he won multiple championships, became a big star, so he'd be included in that conversation too. But yeah, he's got to be one of the fastest growing, not including the TNA Japan stuff. He's got to be one of the fastest growing WWE superstars within his first 3 years. Roman and obviously the Shield guys would be on that list as well, because they all won championships within their first 2 or 3 years on the main roster. But AJ's got to be on that list, if only because he held the championship longer than almost anyone with the exception of CM Punk in the last 25 years, which is pretty amazing. So again, he's got to be on that list too. His second question, was Daniel Bryan the right person to drop the title to? I would have had him drop the championship to The Miz. My ideal situation was having AJ drop the belt to The Miz. And now, I'm not just saying this because they had a great match on Tuesday. I've been saying this for weeks. AJ drops the belt to The Miz after he had won the Best in the World WWE World Cup at Crown Jewel, which meant nothing. It still means nothing. But it could have meant something if Miz won, said he was the best wrestler in the world, became WWE Champion, and then Bryan came back to win the Royal Rumble and beat Miz for the championship at WrestleMania. It was a story I thought would have been well written. It would have made sense. They didn't do it. They still could do it with the roles reversed. I don't see that as being a likely possibility, to be honest with you. But Bryan's still a great choice. I thought Miz would have been better, but Bryan's still great. He's a great heel right now. He had a great promo on Tuesday's Smackdown. He's taking the ball and running with it. He's clearly much more comfortable and enjoying himself, much more as a heel than he ever was as a babyface, at least since he came back earlier this year. So he's making the most of the material he's been given, and the matches he's been having with AJ have been great. So, I know that was before he turned heel, but the match with Brock was great too. So, yeah, Bryan was not a bad consolation prize at all. And his third question, who in the Hall of Fame does not deserve their place? There's a few people. I could say Beth Phoenix. I think she deserves it, but they called her in. They put her in there way too soon. To put her in there before Sable, and to put her in there before China, which some people may not agree with me with about Sable, but, I think she belongs in there. She was a pretty big face in the Attitude Era. regardless of the fact that, she was an awful wrestler, she still had a very big impact on that Attitude Era. So she belongs in there, in my opinion. Chyna, too. We all know why she's not going in anytime soon, but maybe at some point down the road. Beth Phoenix just kind of felt premature. It kind of felt like they were going to induct Mickie James, but then they realized, oh shit, she's on the roster, she's still active, so we'll put in someone else instead. I feel like that might have been a case, that a factor, just because it's a little too soon for her. But whatever. Obviously, Coco Beware will always be like, why the fuck is he in the Hall of Fame? I mean, I still stand by that. I'm not really sure why. He doesn't really need to be in the Hall of Fame. He was a colorful character, but beyond that, does he really need to be in the Hall of Fame? I would argue not. Rikishi also, I like Rikishi. I'm not going to be angry at the fact that he's in the Hall of Fame. There really is no purpose, though. There are other people that should be inducted before him. People like Lex Luger, Psycho Sid. They deserve to be in there before fucking Rikishi. Rikishi, maybe at some point at like the bottom of the barrel down the road, years down the road when you have no one else. But like the guy was infamous for like the heel run that lasted all of a fucking month in 2000 and the Too Cool stuff. And that was about it. He really didn't do much else. I know he was a part of that, like, not the Wild Samoans, but like that tag team before he became Rikishi, but was that even acknowledged when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame? Same thing with The Godfather. The Godfather character is not Hall of Fame worthy, but if you're including his Papa Shango stuff and the, whatever the hell his other name was, I forgot what it was, in the fucking not the Nation of Domination, but, I don't know, whatever that dumb, Mustafa, or whatever the fuck it was. If you include that stuff, then maybe. The Godfather alone is a joke. The guy should not be in the Hall of Fame. The character should not be in the Hall of Fame unless you're including Charles Wright, all the characters that he's played over the course of his career. Rikishi, same thing. The guy really has no place in the Hall of Fame if he's just there for Rikishi. Because what the fuck did Rikishi ever do? He was a glorified tag team guy. Okay, shook his ass a couple times on people's faces. Like that makes him a Hall of Fame worthy competitor? A Hall of Fame worthy superstar? I don't think so. Oh, do the stink face, like, rub your ass in someone's face, and you get into the Hall of Fame. I didn't think it was that easy, but apparently it is. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, thoughts on heel Daniel Bryan, and do you think heel Daniel Bryan is better than heel Ambrose? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think that's because of the writing more so than anything. Bryan, I'm not sure how much input and creative freedom has been given with his promos. I feel like he's had a lot to do with it, because a lot of those words feel like something that he would say himself. Raw's creative team, I don't know what the fuck's going on with him, with Dean Ambrose. I doubt Dean Ambrose is saying, let's put on a gas mask and make fun of how the fans smell. I highly doubt that. We've seen heel Dean Ambrose before, bits and pieces here and there in the main roster, and well before it came to WWE. I've never seen that shit before. That's fucking stupid. I've never seen that shit before from heel Dean Ambrose. That's definitely not of his making. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but heel Bryan so far is infinitely better than heel Dean Ambrose. Even though they're both very good heels, Daniel Bryan is off to a much stronger start as a heel than Dean Ambrose is. So I've been loving heel Daniel Bryan so far. I thought he cut a good promo on Tuesday. A lot of what he was talking about made no sense. It was very weird. I mean, it made sense, but it was like fucking nonsensical, and the guy comes across as crazy. So if that's what he was going for, mission accomplished. Because the guy felt like he was off his rocker. And then the aggression he's been showing, the commentary work I thought was great. Heel Daniel Bryan's been a treat. He really has been. Ambrose can be great too, but he's got to be booked better. He's got to his promos have got to reflect, I don't know, his in-ring. I don't know what's going on with Dean Ambrose. I really don't. Because with Ambrose, it's like, the fans smell. Like, you have a reason for him to go heel with the Seth Rollins thing. All you have to say is that Rollins turned his back on him, so now Ambrose turned his back on Rollins. That makes complete sense. Why not go in that direction? Why do you need to go out of your way to make people boo Dean Ambrose? I mean, he should anyway. But you can do that by targeting Seth Rollins, not by calling the fans smelly and doing the vaccination bullshit. It's so stupid. It has Vince McMahon written all over it. So hopefully he can turn it around soon enough and become the heel that we all know that he can be. Could you see Drew McIntyre getting a run with the Universal Championship and WWE reuniting him with Heath Slater and Jinder as his lackeys? I hope not. I really hope not. McIntyre, Slater, and Mahal, it was a fine little undercard comedy group. They had no chemistry. That was maybe what made it so fun for a little while. I was never a 3MB fan. I never gave a shit about 3MB, to be honest with you. With McIntyre, he does not need lackeys. I think he's fine on his own. He doesn't need Slater and Mahal. Mahal sucks anyway. Slater, just keep him as the lovable undercard babyface. There's no reason to turn that guy heel. McIntyre should become Universal Champion, but there's no reason to reunite him with Slater and Mahal. Keep that 3MB shit in the past. Keep up for the Table for 3 specials on the network. Beyond that, beyond the Table for 3 stuff, no real need to have a 3MB reunion on WWE TV. Next question from @TheWrestleGuy on Twitter. Do you think after TLC, WWE needs to have a hard reset with some of the current plans going on, especially since we are heading into the most important time of the year, the road to WrestleMania? They obviously had a hard reset coming out of the Roman Reigns announcement that he has leukemia and had to leave. They reset a lot of shit, but that was not enough to salvage Raw. I hoped it would be, but Raw still sucks. Raw sucked with Roman around. It still sucks now that he's gone. Obviously I want Roman around, but it just goes to show that no matter who you have around, it all comes down to the creative. Because you can have a bunch of people out, which obviously is going to hurt the product, but even if you had those people back, Raw would not be that much better off. Because we had Braun, we had Roman around a few months ago every week. Raw still sucked. It still was not a good show. So that would not change much. It would help, but it wouldn't change much. So hopefully after TLC, that's usually the time period where nothing matters. Because they're only really building up the main title match for the Rumble and then the Rumble match. So I'm hoping they make the most of that time and give us some compelling programming. But if they're not giving us compelling programming right now, heading into one of their pay-per-views, where they have a bunch of matches lined up between Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman, which no one can give two shits about, heading into Dean Ambrose and Rollins, which they've cooled off significantly, heading into Ronda Rousey versus Nia Jax, which I have no interest in whatsoever at this point, because of Nia Jax just being fucking terrible, and them hurting Ronda Rousey with some of the shit that they've had or been doing recently. If they can't give us compelling TV and must-see TV heading into that pay-per-view, I have no faith that they'll do any sort of reset or do any sort of exciting angle coming out of TLC. Because late December, early January is all about the holiday day bullshit. It's all about the holiday day, the holiday, shows and the Christmas bullshit. And Christmas this year, or let's say, Christmas Eve falls on a Raw. Christmas falls on SmackDown. New Year's Eve falls on Raw. New Year's Day falls on SmackDown. So again, I think those shows are going to be taped. There's going to be a long period after TLC where nothing is going to matter for weeks on end. I remember when they did it in 2012, it was like a fucking month before we got anything significant storyline-wise coming out of that TLC pay-per-view, which was amazing. But the next month of Raws was abysmal because, they were stuck with the holiday shit and they just didn't want to put forth the effort and they kind of rested on their laurels with the Royal Rumble match and all this other garbage. Ideally, yes, they need a hard reset, at least with Raw right now, because it sucks. Will they? Very likely not. I would assume no. The last question for this week's show, @Scarlet1 from Twitter. What do you make of the fact that two of WWE's current big heels are someone who rants about climate change, Daniel Bryan, and someone who feels vaccinations are necessary, Dean Ambrose? It's comical, but it's not surprising. I think with Bryan, a lot of that is his own writing, of his own, work, I think. I think Bryan had a lot to do with the heel stuff he's been saying on SmackDown recently. Ambrose, I feel like that sounds a lot like Vince McMahon, typical heel bullshit with all the get your vaccinations and all this other dumb shit. They've done this before, with, who was it? Shane Douglas, whatever his name was, whatever the fuck his name was in WWE years ago. Isaac Yankem. The whole idea behind Isaac Yankem was that Vince hated dentists. So he brought in a dentist to be a bad guy because he hated dentists. That's so stupid. I could see why that would make sense in certain situations, not with shit like that. I honestly, full-heartedly believe that Vince McMahon feels that way about climate change and that vaccinations are necessary. But he uses it in a heel way because he knows people are going to boo it. So it's funny, that he does that. I think Vince has a lot to do with that, but I think a lot of the climate change stuff is a Daniel Bryan thing. But again, this is nothing new. They've done this shit before. Look at CM Punk. The guy would rant and rave for months about being straight edge and how that means I'm better than you, and I'm sure Vince felt that way and all this. I'm sure he doesn't drink. Maybe he does. I don't know. But they had CM Punk portray a heel character where he was basically telling people to not drink or do drugs, and he was a heel because of it. So again, he's promoting a cool message, a good message, even though he was doing it in the wrong way. He was promoting a good message and being an asshole about it, but he made a lot of great points when he was doing that straight edge society shit. And even Daniel Bryan is not new to any of this because they did the exact same thing with Bryan about 6 years ago when he first went heel in 2012, He's like, being a vegan means I'm better than you because I don't eat meat and all you people have to eat meat. It felt like CM Punk light, but it was still good stuff because Bryan made the most of it. And again, a lot of that had to do with Vince and how he portrayed Daniel Bryan. He thought Bryan not eating meat was weird. He thought it made him a loser. He thought it made him an asshole, a bad guy. So they incorporated that into his character when he turned heel in early 2012. So again, taking a good message and turning it into a heel reasoning or a heel theme or whatever, like a layer of someone's character, is nothing surprising for this company. Not surprising, I should say, for Vince McMahon, because that is a classic trope of his. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. At least in Daniel Bryan's case on Tuesday, it did work. So kudos to him, to Bryan or Vince or whoever came up with that, because it's some wacky, weird shit, but if it works and it gets heat, that's all that matters. And that does it, guys, for hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 262. Thank you for sending the questions to the show. If you want to send in a question to the show, tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post. I usually put them on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on the comment section of this very video. I'll include your comment and question, rather, in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, like I said, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll be back next Wednesday with another all-new edition of hashtag AskGSM. And one more cheap plug, like I said earlier, guys, two cheap plugs, rather. The 2018 WWE/NXT Year in Review Awards are on their way back to Next Era Wrestling. Start your voting either on Thursday or Friday, likely Friday, so stay tuned for more on that. I'll tweet out the link once it's up in the next couple days at WrestleRant. And also, this Thursday on WrestleRant Radio, my exclusive interviews with the creator of the original Glow show, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, as well as David McLean, as well as the current Impact Knockouts champion, Tessa Blanchard. So we're talking with both those guys on this week's show. It's an awesome episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Till then, guys, I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.